Rescue efforts continue in Haiti after the 7.2 magnitude earthquake that resulted in over 2,000 deaths so far. Cuba already has 3 vaccines anti-COVID-19. The emergency use of vaccines Soberana 02 and Soberana Plus has been approved. Thousands of people wait outside Kabul airport to try to flee Afghanistan as Taliban reportedly began a campaign of persecution against the opponents. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, this is from the South. I am Ray Gomez. We begin with the news. Rescue efforts continue in Haiti after the 7.2 magnitude earthquake that resulted in over 2,000 deaths so far. According to the authorities, more than 12,000 people were injured, while hundreds of individuals remained missing. Severe rains brought by Tropical Storm Grace hampered rescue efforts and caused flooding across the country. International organizations like the World Food Program, the International Organization for Migration, and UNICEF sent humanitarian aid to the Caribbean nation, which includes food, blankets, medicine, safe water, and sanitation material. Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohamed Alan with the United Nations Development Program Administrator Akim Steiner traveled to Haiti to commiserate and show their solidarity with the Haitian people and government. Both officials visited affected communities and met with members of the government, civil society, and UN staff. In the meantime, Puerto Rico National Guard citizen soldiers and helicopters were deployed to Haiti. The National Guard's aviation unit was also present in the Caribbean nation to assist in the rescue and medical transport of injured individuals and aerial assessments of the area. On the way to Grand Anse, our correspondent Madeleine Garcia updates us on the situation of this department of Haiti.
We are heading towards Grand Anse, one of the 10 departments of Haiti. This is what we found on the road: rocks, completely detached from the mountains. Roads are blocked and completely destroyed in some areas. They split open. On our way to Grand Anse, we saw houses that have collapsed. People are trying to see how they can salvage what little they have and take some things with them to build improvised shelters to cope with the situation.
Let's know what else our correspondent managed to find on her visit.
The World Food Program is giving out provisions in the areas affected by the earthquake. The program has been doing this since January, but now with this catastrophe, the coordinators have expanded their range of action, tending initially to those who were hospitalized and then going on to distribute food in the inland areas on the outskirts of the more populated sites that suffered from the quakes. We will continue to inform and keep you up to speed on all that's going on here. As we can see, this requires a lot of aid. This requires food, medicine, tents to shelter the displaced population.
In other news, Argentina's government presented a new extension of its complaint against the management of Mauricio Macri for aggravated smuggling of ammunition and repressive material to Bolivia in the context of the coup against former President Evo Morales in 2019. And the document presented to the justice investigators found an account of facts that reinforce that the former president of the nation directly ordered and organized the smuggling operation. Other information that reinforced the accusations against Macri were provided by public servants from the previous administration, such as the former head of the cabinet, Marcos Peña, and former foreign minister, Jorge Faria. According to their statements, all participated in the previous meetings that showed their central role during the operation. In Bolivia, the state's general attorney, Juan Lanchipa, presented the Supreme Court of Justice the accusatory requirement against Janine Áñez for the massacres of Sacabans and Cata committed during the coup of 2019. The requirement will have to be remitted to the Plurinational Legislative Assembly, which would authorize an account of responsibilities trial for the 20 dead and injured in Sacabans and Cata. Lanchipa explained that Áñez is provisionally accused with the crimes of genocide, severe and mild injuries, and injury followed by death. The legal claim was presented amid an accusatory proposition by the victims of the violent acts played out in Bolivia between November 15 and 19, 2019. City of El Alto.
The Public Ministry presented today in the Supreme Court of Justice the accusatory requirement against the citizen Janine Anges Chavez for the acts and events provisionally deemed as genocide, severe and mild injuries, and injuries followed by death. The present accusatory requirement presented by the Public Ministry in the Supreme Court of Justice about the events that led to the death of 20 people and several dozens of wounded are based on the elements of convictions stated under the principle of objectivity. This is transparency in the development of the backstory and context search and information build-up stage of the investigation process as seen in the Law 044.
We'll be right back after this very short break. Welcome back. The Cuban Center for State Control of Medicines, Equipment and Medical Devices authorized the emergency use of the COVID-19 vaccine Soberana 02 and Soberana Plus. This approval is supported by the results obtained after the phases 1, 2, and 3 of the clinical trials, as well as the intervention study in several groups and population at risk. According to the authorities, these studies provided sufficient elements on the safety and efficacy of the vaccines for their massive use in the country and their subsequent marketing abroad. It was also suggested that the vaccination program should combine 2 doses of Soberana 02 and a 3rd dose using Soberana Plus. This program was approved for the population over 19 years of age. Meanwhile, the director of epidemiology, Dr. Francisco Durana, reported that 27.5% of the national population has already received the 3 doses of one of the vaccines developed in Cuba.
At the moment, 27.5% of the Cuban population has 3 doses of the candidate vaccines, and 38.8% has a 2nd dose, and 43.6% of the entire Cuban population has received at least a 1st dose.
Russian President Vladimir Putin deemed constructive the negotiations enacted on Friday with German Chancellor Angela Merkel in Moscow. Both leaders discussed the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation in Afghanistan, and bilateral relations. The Russian head of state acknowledged that Germany is still one of the country's main partners, despite political differences, commenting on the issue that the commercial exchange between both nations has doubled since the first trimester of this year. Merkel, on her side, highlighted the importance of maintaining a dialogue for overcoming differences. The encounter occurred in the final days of Merkel's functions as Chancellor, set to cease in September. Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi met with his Turkish counterpart Mevlut Çavuşoğlu on Friday as part of his regional tour. The meeting agenda included regional security and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The visit comes as the part of Motegi's regional tour, including visits to Egypt, Iran, Israel, Jordan, Palestine and Qatar from August 15 to 24th. Prior to his visit, the Japanese official expressed that the peace and stability of the Middle East region are extremely important for the international community, including Japan. Malaysia's longest governing political party reclaimed the premiership lost in the 2018 election defeat after the country's King Sultan Abdullah Shah on Friday named Ismail Sabri Yaakob as the new leader. Ismail was the deputy prime minister under the government of Muhyiddin Yassin, who resigned Monday after less than 18 months in office, as fighting in his coalition cost his majority support. Ismail's appointment brought back the rule of the United Malays National Organization, which had led the nation since independence from Britain in 1957, but was ousted in 2018 elections over a multi-billion-dollar financial scandal. Sultan Abdullah said in a statement that he hopes Ismail's designation as prime minister will bring to an end to Malaysia's political turmoil. And China passed a series of new laws at the closing meeting of the 13th session of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. After rounds of reviews, the Congress adopted the new laws, including the ones on personal information protection, anti-corruption supervisors, doctors, and legal assistants. The law on the protection of personal information will take effect on November 1st this year, while the laws on the legal assistants and anti-corruption supervisors will take effect on January 1st, 2022. A law amendment was also passed, allowing each couple to have 3 children and specifies support measures for the new policy. Astronauts in China's space station core module Tianhe performed their second extravehicular activities on Friday. This time, the astronauts helped develop and construction of the space station by installing extended pump sets. The 3 members of the crew have been in orbit for 2 months now. They first arrived in the Shenzhou 12 spaceship and entered Tianhe on mid-June. The pump sets they installed are modular pieces of the system that controls temperature in the space station. Their success in the mission now grants it's possible for fellow nationals to inhabit the station and work within it in the nearby future, with ideal thermal conditions for them and the equipment they will use.
That fluid that flows in it is just like blood in the human body. There are many fluid pipes that run through the whole space station, just as the heart functions as the engine that pumps the blood through vessels. It is the circulating pumps that drive the fluid to flow through the pipes. The extended pump set is like the spare tire of the car. If malfunction occurs, we can switch it over at any time to ensure that the station continues to operate.
Teen climate activist Greta Thunberg was back protesting outside the Swedish parliament on Friday to mark the 3-year anniversary of her first school strike, which grew into a global youth-led protest movement. Thunberg's initiative caught on around the world, with millions joining at the weekly Fridays for Future protest to call on world leaders to listen to scientists about climate change and act to stop it. Fridays for Future became a global movement that not only advocates for stop pollution, but also to use politics and resources for a better cause than consumerism.
Unfortunately, I think we will still be protesting in 3 years because this will take many decades, unfortunately, probably, or at least many years. We don't know, but we will still have to do everything that we can. In order for us to start caring about this is to make us aware of what's actually happening. That's I'm convinced at least. When we understand the severity of what's happening and when we understand what we can do about it, I'm certain that we will start to take action, because we are not, if we start to treat the crisis like a crisis, if people around us start treating the crisis like a crisis, I think that we will start to take action.
Young people living in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan are among those most at risk of the impacts of climate change. According to a new UNICEF report, the climate situation is threatening their health, education, and protection. It ranked countries based on children's exposure to climate and environmental shocks, such as cyclones and heat waves, as well as their vulnerability to those shocks based on the access to essential services. Approximately 1 billion children live in countries classified as extremely high risk, including the 4 South Asian mentioned. We have more stories coming up after this financial break. Welcome back. Thousands of people were outside Kabul airport to try to flee Afghanistan as Taliban reportedly began a campaign of persecution against opponents. 70,000 people have been evacuated since Sunday. According to a United Nations intelligence document, the Taliban are going house to house to take reprisals against opponents and their families. Meanwhile, European media affirmed that the members of the self-styled Islamic Emirate make a blacklist with all the Afghans that in their time collaborated with the Western countries. On the other hand, according to Reuters, U.S. officials claimed that the Taliban have taken possession of 2,000 U.S.-made armored vehicles, as well as between 30 and 40 aircraft and an uncountable number of weapons. We continue in Afghanistan, where our collaborator Bakr Yunus brings us new information about the situation in the country.
The situation in Afghanistan is taking a new direction, with reports coming in that the Taliban have begun to hunt down blacklisted personalities. It is to be feared that the insurgents may soon execute these individuals within the next few days. On the ground, many Afghan citizens are still making their way to Kabul airport in an attempt to get a seat out of the Kabul hell, as one of the citizens we contacted explained. He and his family currently see no hope for Afghanistan because the fate of the country is civil war, which Afghans do not want to live in, as they are tired of all these wars. As Najib Shah, a citizen of Kabul, told us, meanwhile, internal dialogue efforts continue. Heshmat Ghani, brother of former Afghan President Ashraf Ghani, explained to us that negotiations efforts are made to calm the situation and manage things the best way possible, but only if all parties the agreements reached between the Taliban and several Afghan leaders, including Abdullah and Hamid Karzai. Perhaps the most threatening issue now is the movement of Afghan traders who fear losing their business and use different ways of transferring their money abroad through Iran, Pakistan and Uzbekistan. The story under investigation today is the size and quantity of the weapons left behind by U.S. forces in Afghanistan, most of which are already in the hands of the Taliban. According to sources, the insurgents already have in their possession some 2,000 armored vehicles, including U.S. Humvees and about 40 aircraft, such as UH-60s Black Hawks, attack helicopters, and Scan Eagle military drones. All this coincides with the evacuation of those wishing to leave Kabul, with the number of people evacuated to Pakistan alone reaching 350 people, including World Bank staff in Afghanistan. From Al-Majideen for teleSUR, Baggerns, Islamabad, Pakistan.
In an interview with China State GTN television, Afghan Taliban spokesperson Suhail Sekian said the Asian giant could contribute to the development of Afghanistan. The Taliban official stated that China has a huge economy and capacity, and it can play a very big role in the rebuilding, rehabilitation, and reconstruction of Afghanistan. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said that Beijing maintains communication with the Taliban and other on the basis of full respect for the sovereignty of Afghanistan and the will of all sectors.
Negotiation which is continuing, it is considering all Afghans. All Afghans are considered, but then they will select some personalities which is suitable to be included in the future government. So that is the general framework. So when they are selected, they will be announced to all. Right now, it is a vacuum of power. There is no time for any kind of election. There is no constitution. A new constitution will be drafted and then approved. So this needs a lot of work, but that work will be done later. But right now, there is a need to have an Afghan inclusive government. So of course, through talks with these personalities and politicians and deliberation among our top leadership and among ourselves, those persons will be selected.
The Kenyan Court of Appeals is to rule either in favor or against the president's request to change the country's constitution. With somewhat short of a year left in his mandate, President Uhuru Kenyatta lights the glare of the matter in the organization of reforms which, by expanding the executive and parliament, could help reduce the tension between political rival parties and grant a distribution of power in a more cooperative way between the key actors, both in dominance and opposing sides. Kenyatta favored his initiative, explaining it will help end violence during the election times and recalled the 2007 turnouts when over 1,100 people died in riots and in civilian street confrontations.
I will now read the introductory part of my judgment, after which we'll take it out from there. And we follow in the order in which we introduced ourselves earlier. That the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is a transformative one has never been in dispute at all.
Burkina Faso authorities have revealed that the death toll resulting from the terrorist attack in the Sahel region rose to 59 civilian fatalities. 52 men and 7 women were killed in the assault on a convoy of military vehicles and civilians traveling between the towns of Gorgadji and Arbinda, according to a statement issued on Thursday night by the Burkinabe Ministry of Communication and Parliamentary Relations. The number of victims of the terrorist attack, including military and civilians, but excluding the tourists, amount to 80. We've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at teleSUR English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For teleSUR English, I'm Ray Gomez. Thank you for watching.